My father abandoned me my whole life for my stepsister. But when she deliberately chose my wedding date and he picked her, I kicked him out of my ceremony, and now the entire family is destroyed. I'm 28 years old. I'm a freelance journalist, and honestly, I need to get all of this off my chest because what happened at my wedding 6 months ago has literally had me in therapy ever since. The thing is, I always knew, like, I always deep down knew that I wasn't my dad's priority, but I guess a part of me thought that when a really important moment came, you know, like your damn wedding, things would be different. Spoiler alert, they weren't. And in fact, they were worse than I could have ever imagined. Let me rewind a bit, because this goes back way further. My parents got divorced when I was 16, and it was a mess, but it was also like, well, at least they don't have to pretend they can stand each other anymore. You know what I mean? My mom kept me. My dad moved to an apartment like 20 minutes away, and at first everything seemed relatively normal considering the circumstances. He'd pick me up on weekends, we'd go out to eat, he'd ask me about school, that kind of thing. But then, and this happened literally less than a year after the divorce, he met my stepmom. Her name was Linda. She had 2 daughters, Sienna, who was exactly my age, like we were born 3 months apart, and Sage, who was like 2 years younger. Linda seemed super nice at first. Honestly, I liked her. Her daughters also seemed normal. And I thought like, okay, this could work. But things started to change almost immediately after they got married. My dad started canceling plans on me because Sienna needed this or that. At first it was small things, like, sorry honey, but Sienna has an important test and needs me to drive her to the library, or, Sienna isn't feeling well today, so let's see each other next week instead. And I tried to be understanding because, well, she was his daughter now too. Technically his stepdaughter. But you know what I mean? And besides, I didn't want to be the typical selfish daughter who doesn't accept her father's new family. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there, but I was too naive or too optimistic or I don't know what. Things got serious when I started college. I was studying journalism at a university like 2 hours away. Nothing crazy. I could come home on weekends if I wanted. My dad never came to visit me, not once in 4 years. He always had an excuse. It was always something with Sienna. She had gotten into the same university as me, by the way, which was super awkward at first, but we basically ignored each other on campus because we studied different things and had completely separate friend groups. But every time I asked my dad if he could come see me, or if he wanted to go eat together near the university, it was always, oh honey, it's just that Sienna has this event, or Sienna needs help moving into her dorm, or Sienna this, Sienna that. The moment that really changed everything was in my junior year of college. I had gotten this amazing internship, like it was at a super prestigious newspaper, and they only accepted 3 students from the entire country. It was huge for my career. 2 weeks before the internship was supposed to start, I got appendicitis. But it wasn't like, oh, it hurts a little and I go to the doctor. No, it was my appendix literally exploded inside me, and I ended up in emergency surgery at 3 in the morning. It was horrible. I was in the hospital for like a week because there were complications, infection, and the whole thing. And obviously I lost the internship because I couldn't even walk properly. My mom was there every day, my stepdad too. My mom had remarried like a year after my dad and her husband was really a good guy. My friends would visit, bring flowers and balloons and all that. My dad? He didn't even come to the hospital. He called me once, like on the 2nd day, to ask me how I was. And I told him I was in the hospital, that it had been emergency surgery, that I had lost the internship I had worked so hard for. And he said, oh honey, I'm so sorry, I'll see you soon. He never came. Never. Like 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital, there was a family dinner, like one of those that my stepmom would organize where we all had to go and pretend we were a happy family. I was still recovering. Everything hurt. I was super depressed about the internship thing, but my mom convinced me to go because according to her, I needed to talk to my dad face to face about what had happened. So I went. And during dinner, someone mentioned something about my surgery. I don't remember exactly what. And my stepmom said, oh yes, it was so hard for everyone, especially because it happened right when Sienna was going through her breakup with Brandon. I was like, excuse me? What? And it turns out that the day of my emergency surgery, the same day I was literally fighting for my life in a hospital, Sienna had broken up with her college boyfriend. And my dad decided she needed him more than I did. He stayed with her. consoled her. They went out for ice cream, watched movies, the whole thing. While I was in a hospital bed, connected to a bunch of machines wondering where my father was, I confronted my dad after dinner, outside in the yard, and I said, "Seriously? A breakup was more important than my emergency surgery?" And he got super defensive, started with how Sienna was devastated, that it was a very serious relationship, that I was fine, and had my mom there, as if that made it better. As if the fact that my mom actually acted like a decent mother meant that he could just disappear. I told him it was incredible, that he always chose Sienna over me, and he denied everything. Said I was exaggerating, that I was being unfair. Typical. After that, I basically reduced contact with him to the minimum. I still went to some family dinners to not cause drama, but I didn't expect anything from him anymore. I graduated from college, he went to the ceremony but left early because Sienna had a dance recital or something, got a job as a freelance journalist, moved into my own apartment. Life went on, I guess. And then I met Marcus. God, Marcus. I met him at a coffee shop like 4 years ago. He was sitting at the next table working on his laptop and spilled his coffee right as I was walking by, and it splashed my shoes. He apologized like 1,000 times, insisted on buying me a new coffee even though I didn't even have one, and we ended up talking for 3 hours. He's a graphic designer, works from home. He's the sweetest and most patient person that exists. I told him about my family, about my dad, about everything. And he never made me feel like I was exaggerating or being dramatic. He just listened. We got engaged like 2 years ago. It was perfect. Nothing super elaborate, just the two of us on the beach at sunset. Exactly how I wanted it. We announced the engagement at a family dinner, and everyone seemed happy. Even my dad said he was glad for me. We started planning the wedding, chose a date, May 15th, because it was my grandparents' anniversary who had already passed away and I wanted to honor them somehow. We sent out the save the dates like 8 months before. Everything was fine. And then, like 5 months before my wedding, Sienna announces that she's also getting married to a guy she had met barely a year ago. But whatever, her life. The strange thing, the truly strange thing, was that when she announced the date of her wedding, it was May 15th, the same day. The exact same date as mine. And when I say she announced it after I had already sent out my save the dates, I mean literally. She knew perfectly well when my wedding was. At first I thought maybe it was a coincidence, like maybe that was the only date the venue she wanted had available or something. But then my stepmom casually mentioned that they had actually had to pay extra to secure that specific date because it was already semi-reserved by someone else. Like, she deliberately chose my date. Deliberately. I told my dad, "Hey, this is super weird, don't you think? Why would Sienna choose exactly the same date as me?" And he played dumb, said it was probably just a coincidence, that there were many good dates for weddings in May. I reminded him that I announced my date first, that everyone knew it, and he just shrugged. But things got worse when he told me, almost casually, that obviously he was going to walk Sienna down the aisle, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I said to him, "And what about me? It's literally the same day. You can't be at 2 weddings at the same time." And he said, "Well, your stepdad can walk you, can't he?" With that tone, like as if it were super reasonable and I was being difficult. I told him that he was my dad, that I had asked first, that my wedding had been planned first. And he basically told me that Sienna needed him more because her biological father had died when she was little and this would be a super emotional moment for her. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't. There it was again. Choosing Sienna over me, on what was supposed to be one of the most important days of my life. I cried, I screamed. I told him exactly what I thought of him and his priorities, and he just kept going with how I was being selfish, that I needed to understand that Sienna was also his family. As if I didn't know that, as if that wasn't exactly the problem. My stepdad, who's named Tom, by the way, found out about all this because my mom told him. He came to my apartment one night, brought me Chinese food. He knows it's my favorite when I'm stressed, and told me he would be honored to walk me down the aisle if I wanted him to. And the thing is that Tom has been in my life since I was 17. He came to all my school plays when my dad couldn't. He helped me move to college. He taught me to drive, stick shift. He's the one who asks me about my work and actually listens to the answers. He's more of a father to me than my biological dad has been in years. So I told him yes, that I would love for him to walk me. The months before the wedding were crazy. Sienna and I basically weren't talking, which was fine by me. My dad kept acting like everything was normal, asking me about my wedding plans but constantly mentioning Sienna's plans too, like comparing them. My stepmom tried to keep the peace, but it was obvious she was on Sienna's side in all of this. Sage, Sienna's younger sister, was the only one who told me privately that the whole thing seemed super weird to her and that she thought Sienna had done it on purpose, but that she couldn't say anything publicly because the family would go crazy. The wedding day came. I was at the venue from 8 in the morning, getting my hair and makeup done with my bridesmaids, drinking champagne, nervous but excited. The ceremony was at 2 in the afternoon. At noon, my dad shows up at the venue. Just shows up, without warning, without anyone expecting him, and asks to see me. One of my bridesmaids came to tell me that my dad was downstairs, and I was like, what? Isn't he supposed to be at Sienna's wedding? I went down, still in my robe because I hadn't even put on my dress yet, and there he was, in a suit, but he looked super bad, like disheveled and with red eyes. He told me we needed to talk. I asked him what he was doing there, and he explained to me, basically yelling, that Sienna had uninvited him from her wedding that morning, that they had had a fight because he mentioned he felt bad about missing my wedding, and she told him that if I was so important to him, then he should go to my wedding instead of hers, and when he said no, that he had already committed to walking with her, she exploded and told him she didn't want him there anymore. She kicked him out, literally kicked him out of her own wedding. And then, and I can't believe this actually happened, he told me that since he wasn't going to Sienna's wedding anymore, he wanted to fulfill his duty as my father and walk me down the aisle. Just like that. Casual. As if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't chosen her wedding over mine in the first place. As if I were his plan B. I told him no. I told him I already had someone who was going to walk me, that Tom had been there for me when he wasn't, and that I wasn't going to change that 2 hours before my ceremony just because Sienna had rejected him. He got furious, started yelling that he was my father, that it was his right, that I couldn't replace him with Tom. I started yelling at him too, 11 years of resentment and pain coming out all at once, telling him exactly what a bad father he had been, all the times he had sidelined me, all the times Sienna was more important. Tom showed up because he heard the yelling, and my dad, oh my God, my dad tried to hit him. He literally tried to punch Tom, who was just trying to calm the situation down. Marcus's groomsmen had to separate them. It was a complete mess. There were people screaming, my bridesmaids were horrified. And I was standing there in my robe, feeling like my wedding was being ruined before it even started. We had to call security to escort my dad out of the venue, and he was yelling the whole way, saying I would regret it, that I was making a mistake, that someday I would understand. It took me like an hour to calm down enough to continue with the preparations. Marcus came to see me. You know, it's supposed to be bad luck, but at that moment I didn't care, and just held me while I cried on his shoulder. My bridesmaids were amazing. They helped me touch up my makeup, gave me water, reminded me to breathe. Tom came and asked me if I still wanted him to walk me, that he would completely understand if I had changed my mind given the drama, but I told him absolutely yes, that he was exactly who I wanted there with me. The ceremony was beautiful, honestly. Despite all the chaos of the morning, the moment the music started and I started walking down the aisle with Tom, everything else disappeared. Marcus was at the end of the aisle crying. He's super emotional. I love him. My friends and family were there smiling, and for a few moments, everything was perfect. I married the love of my life, surrounded by people who really loved me, and who had chosen to be there. My dad wasn't there, but honestly, in retrospect, it was better that way. The reception was also amazing. We danced, ate, drank. It was exactly as we had planned. Some relatives asked me where my dad was, and I just said he couldn't make it. I didn't want to get into details and ruin the vibe. My mom knew what had happened, obviously, and she and Tom made sure I was okay throughout the whole night. I thought that would be the end of it, you know? I thought that after the wedding things would calm down and we would all move on with our lives. But no. Like a week after the wedding, my dad called me and asked me to meet up to talk. I agreed because a stupid part of me thought that maybe he was going to apologize, to finally acknowledge what he had done. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment, and he basically spent the whole meeting telling me how disappointed he was in me, how I had humiliated him in front of everyone by kicking him out of my wedding, conveniently forgetting to mention that he tried to hit Tom and that I needed to apologize to him and to Sienna. I asked him why the hell I would need to apologize to Sienna, and he said because my wedding had ruined her day, that she had been so stressed by all the drama that her wedding wasn't as special as it should have been. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him he was incredible, that none of this was my fault, that I didn't ask Sienna to choose my wedding date, that I didn't ask him to sideline me my entire life. He just shook his head, said that someday when I had kids I would understand, and left. He didn't even pay for his coffee. A few weeks later, there was a family gathering. Someone's birthday or something. I remember exactly. I didn't want to go, but Marcus convinced me it would be good to try to keep things civil, for the sake of the extended family. It was a mistake. My dad was making passive-aggressive comments all night, like, oh, how nice that Veronica could come since she's so busy with her new life, or things about how some children really value their parents. Sienna was there too, acting like nothing had happened, showing everyone photos of her wedding, which apparently did happen, just without my dad. Her mom walked her down the aisle. At one point in the night, in front of basically the entire family, my dad made a comment about how it was sad that some fathers worked so hard for their children only to be replaced by strangers. He said it looking directly at me. I froze, didn't know whether to respond or ignore it. But Tom, who was also there because my mom had brought him, stood up and said very calmly that maybe some fathers should reflect on why their children seek father figures elsewhere. It was super tense. The whole family went quiet, and I just wanted the earth to swallow me. I left that gathering and basically decided I needed to distance myself from all of that. I started therapy, which has honestly helped a lot. My therapist has helped me understand that it's not my responsibility to fix the relationship with my dad, that he's the adult and the one who has to do the work if he really wants to be part of my life. Like 2 months ago, a cousin told me something that honestly confirmed all my suspicions. Apparently, Sienna had told several family members that she chose my wedding date on purpose, as a power move, because she had always been jealous of me. Like, in her mind, I was the biological daughter and she was always going to be the stepdaughter, and she wanted to prove that my dad would choose her, which I guess he did. But apparently now she's angry because he mentioned my wedding on her day, and that caused the fight that led to her kicking. Dote him out. Like, she basically created all this drama and now she's upset with the consequences. I also found out from other family members that Sienna has been saying that I was the one who caused all the drama, that I knew she wanted that date and took it first just to annoy her, that I manipulated Tom to take my dad's place. Pure lies, but apparently there are people who believe her, which honestly tells me everything I need to know about those people. Like a month ago, I had another conversation with my dad. This time, I was the one who initiated it. I told him we needed to establish clear boundaries if we were going to have any kind of relationship in the future. I told him he needed to acknowledge the pattern of behavior, all the times he sidelined me, and that I needed a real apology, not his usual excuses. He basically told me I was being dramatic, that things hadn't been as bad as I remembered them, and that I needed to get over the past. I told him that until he could at least acknowledge my pain, there was no point in continuing to try. He said that if that's how I wanted it to be, that was fine, that he had other daughters who actually appreciated him. That was 3 weeks ago. We haven't spoken since then. I've decided to cut contact with Sienna completely, block her on everything, because frankly, I don't need that toxicity in my life. My relationship with my dad is in a weird limbo where technically we're not fighting, but we're not talking either. My stepmom sent me a message asking if we could work things out, but I explained to her that this isn't something I can fix, that actions have consequences. Now I'm focusing on my marriage, on my work, on relationships that actually are healthy and reciprocal. Marcus has been my rock through all of this. He's never made me feel like I'm too much or that I'm exaggerating. My mom and Tom have been incredible too. I have friends who really support me. And therapy. Honestly, therapy has changed my life. It's helped me process all of this and understand that I don't need my dad's validation to be valuable. Does it still hurt? Of course. It will probably always hurt a little. He's my dad after all, and there's a part of me that still wishes things were different. But I'm learning to accept that some people aren't going to change, that no matter how much you wish it or how hard you try, you can't force someone to prioritize you if they don't want to. And that's okay. Or at least I'm working on it being okay. I'm building my own family. The family I choose. And that's enough.